Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Bond, and I wanted to take a minute and make this short video about a class that I just took for my MBA. It was Organizational Structure and Design, and I just wanted to touch on a few key points that I found that were takeaways from the course. The first thing we learned about the STAR model. STAR model focuses on strategy, structure, process, people, and rewards. And just to touch on a few of those things, you have your strategy, which is your competitive advantage over anyone in the market. Then your structure, how you're going to structure your people and your processes as well to get that job done. And then the people, where the people fit into the organization, where they work the best, and where their strengths and weaknesses are, and where they can really push that competitive advantage and perform. And then your reward system, how do you reward them? How do you keep them working for you to accomplish those goals that you've set in place? So between the strategy and structure, strategy, of course, is going to come first. So you create your strategy, and then you modify your structure to accomplish those goals. So this is who we are, this is what we're going to do and who we're going to be, and the structure is going to be how you're going to do it. And you create those processes around there, you put those people in place and get a reward system that these people will perform for you and will make that strategy that you've come up with, your competitive advantage, where they're going to make that important and take you to success and your ultimate goals. And that can always be modified along the way, and both strategy and structure, but they do go hand in hand. So if you do create a new strategy, just to touch on that again, you can change your structure to match, and a lot of times you have to. So these two things are going to be fluid throughout that time and getting those goals accomplished. But what I think is kind of one of the most important things within this is proper communication. So you want to have proper communication, communicate often, effective communication skills, using any effective communication skills that you've learned through the process, as well as training your people on those effective communication skills. That involves active listening. So what is listening actively? Well, I'm engaged in the conversation. I'm not thinking about what I want to say back yet. I'm listening to what you have to say. I'm going to paraphrase back to you what you said so you know that I'm listening. And then I'm going to empathize with kind of any emotion that could be tied to the situation. And that happens a lot in conflict. So then we can also touch on conflict resolution and how do we use conflict in the corporation. It's not always bad. How do we use it to our advantage and what we can accomplish with that? So again, active listening, we have empathy along with that. Listen actively, paraphrase back to them, prove that you're listening. So this is what you're saying to me, this is what's bothering you in the situation. And then having that empathy and showing that you care and making change for the people as they are ultimately who get the job done for you. Again, conflict resolution. So when we're in a conflict and we face things such as this, we kind of, you know what you're facing. So you know people are going to make up the rest of the story if you don't finish it for them. They're going to take stuff personal. It's always going to happen. We always face that. They're going to react or overreact to what we're saying to them. And they're not going to exactly know what to do with that. And so over time, as it builds, they may start to lose focus. And you have to bring them back to that, bring them back to the focus and the strategy of the company, the focus of the people, and be there for them when they need that. Use emotional intelligence within the organization. If it's not something that your organization is strong at, emotional intelligence, get some training on it. Get the leadership in and understanding emotional intelligence and how it can work for them. And again, communication. Communication is always the key. So in structure, within an organization, you have your tops, your middles, your bottoms. And they have different functions within there. Within the tops, one of the things that I took away from the course, within the tops, we can see turf wars among them occasionally. And I think what would really help there is defining each department and where their role fits in. So as an example, I currently work as a material supervisor. So the material department is support. It's a support group, and we have to understand our role and how we support production, and that's where we fit in. So like it or not, we don't necessarily add value per se. We're not a value-added department such as production, but we are a key role. And if we focus on that and we serve the production, then we all win in the long run. So defining those roles. One thing that I've noticed within, say, a union environment, we can sometimes have groupthink. So when we're trying to problem solve, once a month we have problem solving within our teams in the union, and they all get together. And you can kind of get groupthink where they've kind of all been programmed to think or feel a certain way, and it becomes the norm for them. So to bring them out of this is rather difficult. And for ones that have kind of disengaged themselves, because the corporation has always been one thing to them and one thing only, and that's all it should be. They just want to come in, work, get their paycheck, go home. Engaging them is the key, and getting them engaged in the corporation, and how showing them that how these problem solving and these continuous improvements can help them as well. So where do I see myself within that? Currently as a supervisor role, I'm somewhat middle management, so I'm a middle. And I took a quote from Barry Oshry's Seeing Systems book. And the quote is, "My challenge is to be a middle who maintains my independence of thought and action and use it in the service of the system. Be a dominant force who uses that turbulence as a basis for creating a new culture. Where I currently work, we are in need of a new culture." And that's something that's rather difficult to change, especially in a union environment where they've been set in their ways for many years. They don't want to change, and if there is change, it must always benefit them. And honestly, as the front line, those people, I think I can make that change for them, but it will be a culture change to make those incremental changes that eventually catch on and make a difference, and may impact the entire organization, the entire industry. So one of the things that I also another takeaway that I got from it is some tips, and they call it gardening. And how would I garden those key ideas, those continuous improvement ideas that I've been talking about this entire time? How do I get them engaged, and how do I kind of pluck those ones that are going to work or that I think are going to work and push them forward? And how do I get them to push them for me as they're the front line? And the approach I took, which is something we've talked a lot about in the class. And first, I want to build relationships. So I get to know them. I really dig into who they are, and then we can move into what they do. So I observe them, understand the business, understand their part of the business, every little aspect that they do. And as I'm kind of learning it along with them, I'm making notes. Where do I see improvements that could happen? Am I hearing them? Am I listening actively and catching areas that they would like to improve and things that would change them? And again, gardening those ideas out. And then I want to maximize on these relationships. So all these new relationships I just created, I want to maximize on it. And what can I do with it? Again, I want to talk about active listening, communication, paraphrase. When you're listening to someone, don't think about what you're going to say back to them, but actively listen to them, paraphrase back to them what they said so they understand, yes, the other person on the other side is in fact listening to me, and then empathize. There's going to be some emotion attached to it a lot of times, especially, again, I work in a union shop, and there's a lot of emotion tied to some of the things that have happened to them in the past, present, things that they think are coming in the future, and they don't even know that it's coming. There's emotion tied to that. Empathize. Put yourself in their shoes, and I'm going to talk about that again here in a second. So again, maximize relationships. One of the key things that I think to maximizing these relationships, as well as building them, be yourself. Always be yourself. Be true to them. Show them that you're being true to them. In the face of uncertainty, prepare yourself. So be prepared for these multiple scenarios that could go on. One of the things that I've noticed about myself through this 8-week course is that if I don't create these multiple scenarios in my mind, even split second create these multiple scenarios, I get overwhelmed. I'm a bit of a worrier, And if I don't take the time to do this little exercise and figure out all the multiple scenarios that I think could happen, even again, if it's quickly in my mind, I get overwhelmed. I could easily get overwhelmed and worry about these things when I can't control them. And again, like I mentioned in the beginning, I could then lose focus, and I want to stay focused. So how do we get these teams engaged to adopt these voluntary events? So again, we have problem solving. They're required to be at the problem solving meeting. They're not required to participate. So how do you get them to participate? Engagement. Engagement is the key. And how do you get them engaged? Open the lines of communication. Treat it like a partnership. And when you open those lines of communication and communicate often, prove to them that the communication is important to you, and what's important to them is important to you, and you'll make a difference if you can. And a lot of times you can, even in small incremental steps. And you can prove that. And again, emotional intelligence is going to be very important here. So if you have leadership that you're seeing they're not strong on that emotional intelligence, it won't take much to get training on that. And it could be inexpensive training at that. So put yourself in their shoes, anticipate those issues that you might need to address. And where that's going to be key is in the heat of the conflict. So if you anticipate these issues, as I was talking about, that I really go through these multiple scenarios, as you have that prepared, either on paper or even just quick in your mind, it's really going to be key in the heat of the conflict. So one of the last things that we talked about is a soulless corporation. What is a soulless corporation and how do we stay away from it? And what's important to me, what I saw, is kind of keeping the human needs at the center. And that's what we talked about in our text as well. Keep the human need at the center. You don't want to fade away from your original empathy. So at some point in the creation of your business, there was a human need and you had empathy for the humans out there that had that need. Whether it's everyone, whether it's just a few. But that's what created your business. That's what drove you. So keep that drive. Keep that alive. Don't lose that. And then treat your employees with that same empathy. You have an empathy for the people and their human need. Your employees have human needs. And treat them that way. If this is lost and you become a soulless corporation, a mindless machine, you'll be lost in the background noise and you will eventually die off. And I know it seems like some of these corporations that we might think are soulless haven't died off. They will eventually die off, and we're headed that direction as we become more global. I mean, we are global. We are a global society, and that can't be lost at this point. What has been set in place cannot be lost. If I was to change anything in the world today, we talked about change by design, and if I was going to use that to change anything in the world, not just business, I would use it for self-esteem and self-worth. I would do all I can to get people to understand self-esteem and self-worth, and that they have a worth in the world right now, and we're all worthy to be here, and we can all make a difference, even if it's just small. Part of how I would do this is to just education for new parents, existing parents, whatever it is. Teach them to introduce this at an early age, give them confidence at an early age, really coach them through the process, through the entire life, and even into their teens, especially into their 20s as they're through college. Coach them through this. Show them that they have some self-worth, and it will really build that self-esteem. Other ways that I would use change by design, again, we were really pushed to create ways that we would change. And one of the other things I came up with is how might we feed the hungry through self-producing systems. And the reason this one really caught my attention is aquaponics. There's a thing called aquaponics, and what it is it's a self-contained system that there is a fish farm in like a large aquarium, and they feed off of the minerals through the soil and kind of wastewater from the plants that grow. So you have a top system with plants that are growing, live plants, and waters run through there. As it's filtered through there and minerals come through, that water is filtered back into the fish system, back into the aquarium. They eat all the debris at the bottom, they feed off of that, and then their waste is then used as fertilizer and brought back through the system, and it fertilizes the plants. Self-contained system, and it grows basically on its own. The entire system is self-contained, and I just thought that this was an amazing thing. It's been done on very small levels. It's been done on large scale levels. It's been done on rooftops in cities, anywhere it can be created. And I just think that this would be huge impact on feeding the hungry and how I could make a difference in change by design.